Good morning, Chair Ballandroff, members Garrett, Holmes, staff, and guests. The lobbies are open and the recording has begun.
Thank you and good morning. I will now convene the board caucus meeting for Tuesday, June 30th. And we will jump right into our policy and rules team update and board meeting preparation for tomorrow. And so, Kevin, I will turn it over to you for general updates and go from there. So, good morning.
All right. Good morning, Chair Bollendroff and board members Garrett and Holmes. Summer is now officially upon us, despite the January weather out our windows. And the rules team is down to 13 open rules projects at various stages of development. Starting with the cannabis rulemaking, tomorrow I'll be requesting your approval to file the CR 103 to adopt final rules implementing engrossed House Bill 2681, increasing cannabis licensing fees. And Daniel will be presenting our recommendation on a petition we received requesting the expansion of allowable canopy space for Tier 2 licensees who grow outdoors. On July 3rd, the recently adopted cannabis advertising rules implementing Senate Bill 5206 will take effect. And since the rules were adopted last month, E&E has developed a guidance document that the rules team provided feedback on to assist licensees in ensuring compliance with the new rules. Also on July 3rd, the informal public comment period for the agricultural cannabis cooperatives rulemaking implementing engrossed House Bill 1941 will come to a close. We've coordinated with representatives from the Department of Agriculture, given that both agencies are referenced in the legislation, and they have indicated that they will be monitoring at the policy level, but do not intend to conduct any rulemaking around this legislation. We, on the other hand, are contemplating adding some minimal reporting requirements in the rule to track these associations, and may also include references to other existing rules, but do not anticipate any extensive new requirements beyond that. The project team will meet later this month to finalize an initial draft, and stakeholder sessions will be announced in the coming weeks. Then we've got the rulemaking to implement engrossed substitute Senate Bill 5403, limiting financial interest agreements for cannabis retailers, which remains a heavy focus as we continue working towards the next draft. The project team's most recent focus in response to public comments has been to clarify in the draft the distinction between true party of interest and someone who shares a financial interest but is not necessarily a TPI, and the impact that these relationships have on the 5 retail store limit. At this point, we expect to finalize and share the next draft publicly by the end of July, followed by what will likely be a relatively short public comment period before we can finalize the draft and begin assessing the small business economic impact in preparation for a CR 102 filing. Given the potential economic implications involved, this could require us to contract out with an economist, and that process can take about 3 months to complete. Ultimately, we're currently on track to file the CR 102 proposal by late fall and adopt final rules around the end of the year. Moving on to alcohol rules. After a bit of a lull, we expect things to start moving again on the retail alcohol product placement rulemaking, with our contractor finalizing the preliminary cost-benefit analysis just this week, and the small business economic impact analysis expected to be completed by the end of the month. Barring any unforeseen issues, we should be in position to file the CR 102 in September and adopt final rules by the end of the year. Then we've got a couple of alcohol rule items for the board decision tomorrow. First, I'll be requesting your approval to file CR 103s to adopt final rules implementing House Bill 1526, allowing snack bars to serve wine by the glass, and House Bill 2476, increasing the number of seats that a spirits, beer, and wine theater may have from 120 to 200. And finally, Daniel will be requesting approval to file a CR 102 proposing rules to implement second substitute House Bill 1701, allowing liquor licensees to lease space to one another, which, if approved, will go to a public hearing on August 12th. And then we'd request approval to file the CR 103 at the September board meeting. So that does it for my rules update. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Kevin. I see no questions, so we'll let you go ahead and move on to the next agenda item, which is seeking approval or a discussion on the CR 103 for 2026 expanded legislative implementation of House Bill 1526.
All right. So this was part of the the package of expedited rules. There were 3 of them. So on behalf of the director's office, I will be requesting approval tomorrow to file 3 CR 103s to adopt final rule amendments necessary to implement 3 bills passed earlier this year. The first of those is House Bill 1526, which allows snack bar licenses to serve wine by the glass in addition to open bottles or cans. The second is engrossed Senate substitute House Bill 2476 and increases the maximum number of seats that a theater can have to qualify for a spirits, beer, and wine theater license from 120 to 200. And then engrossed House Bill 2681 increases license fees for cannabis producers, processors, and retailers. Because the proposed changes are explicitly dictated in statute and the board has no discretion regarding implementation, these rules qualified for expedited rulemaking, and the proposed rules were filed via CR 105 on April 22nd and published in the Washington State Register on May 6th. During the 45-day public comment period, we only received 1 comment, and that was in reference to engrossed substitute House Bill 2476. That's the theater license bill. And we responded to that public comment we plan to respond to that in the concise explanatory statement. The comment received requested that the statutory electronic ID scanner requirement be amended in rule to allow alternative methods of ID verification in the event of a power failure or software malfunction. After consulting with E&E, our response was that while we can't change the statutory requirement, enforcement staff do have discretion in these matters. And if the failure to use the electronic ID scanners was the result of a power outage or something beyond the licensee's control, no violation would be issued. And in most cases, our enforcement officers would offer education to the licensee and give them an opportunity to come into compliance before any violation would be issued. So accordingly, no changes to the proposed rule language were made.
Makes sense.
So if approved, we will file with the Code Revisor's Office tomorrow, and the rules will become effective immediately. That's it. So thank you. I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right. Any questions for Kevin? All right, Kevin, thank you very much. Looks like you've covered all of the items on the agenda down to Daniel. So did I miss anything or you have anything else?
That's it. Thanks.
All right, thanks very much. Okay, Daniel, we're now up to you for the CR 102 for licensing liquor premises, Senate Bill House, second substitute House Bill 1701.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Vollendroff, members Garrett and Holmes. I'm here this morning on behalf of the Director's Office to preview a CR 102 that I will be requesting approval of during tomorrow's board meeting on implementing second substitute House Bill 1701 on leasing liquor premises. If approved during tomorrow's board meeting, there will be a public comment period open until August 12th, when we plan on holding a public hearing at 10 a.m. on August 12th. Assuming that the public hearing goes well, we anticipate requesting approval for filing the final rule language during the September 2nd board meeting, which would have final rules in effect October 3rd. 1701 allows liquor licensees to lease real or personal property to other liquor licensees, including parts of the operating premises while continuing to operate. So, for example, a beer wine restaurant that owns a building which consists of 2 or more separate spaces can rent out one of those other spaces to a bar or another beer wine restaurant, for example, while continuing to operate their restaurant out of the other half. Additionally, breweries, wineries, and distilleries are also now expressly allowed to rent out a separate space to a retail liquor licensee. The new law specifically states that liquor licensees can lease out their kitchen space, but clarifies that it's the kitchen space being rented out or leased out, not the food service, because that would be the subject of a different rulemaking. The CR 101 was filed on April 13th via the delegated authority provided to the director's office to file a CR 101 on implementing legislation, and we received no comment during the informal comment period. We publicized draft rule language at the end of May, sent out invitations to stakeholder engagement, which was held June 8th and 11th, and we received no questions during or after those sessions. I'll go into more detail tomorrow, but very briefly, the proposed rule language here consists of one proposed new rule and changes to two existing rules. The changes to the two existing rules are adding language that just says that leasing property to other liquor licensees is now allowed, as well as adding references to the contract kitchen rulemaking. The new rule does the following. It defines the relevant terms used, such as a lessor, a lessee, and a lease, borrowing these terms from existing statute on leases. Just for purposes, the lessor is the party leasing the property. So the example I gave during stakeholder engagement, which most people are familiar with, is you're leasing a car. So the lessor is the car dealership, and the lessee is you who's leasing the car. Additionally, as stated in statute, LCB is requiring submission of lease agreements to us and requiring parties to keep copies of them consistent with record-keeping requirements. When licensees are leasing out their kitchen space, we're requiring them to secure the liquor storage. We're also prohibiting leases from requiring any advertisement or sale of specific product. That's also consistent with statute, and it's, out of tied house concerns. Lastly, we're clarifying that this rule doesn't expand shared space situations or contract kitchen scenarios. Lastly, no small business economic impact statement is required because we're implementing legislation. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Daniel. Pretty thorough. So any questions? Seeing no questions, we look forward to having that discussion tomorrow. All right, moving to our last agenda item is a rule petition review and consideration for outdoor Tier 2 canopy expansion. Daniel?
Great, thanks so much. Here this morning again, or still, I guess, to preview a petition response that I'm presenting for recommendation tomorrow on behalf of the director's office. The petitioners are requesting to expand the maximum canopy space from 10,000 square feet as it currently exists to 30,000 square feet for Tier 2 cannabis producers that grow cannabis outside, who I'll just call sun growers, just to be a little less wordy. For the reasons I'll preview today and go into more detail on tomorrow, the director's office is recommending denying this petition for rulemaking because increasing canopy would likely exacerbate oversupply issues of cannabis that have been identified in the Whitney Economic and JLARC reports, and the petitioners are able to obtain a Tier 3 producer's license, which would currently, without rule change, allow them to use up to 30,000 square feet of canopy. On May 5th, Jessica Straight and Kenny Ingebrigtsen, on behalf of Eagle Trees Farm, submitted a petition requesting to amend Washington Administrative Code 314-55075, Section 6, which currently states that Tier 2 producers can use up to 10,000 square feet of canopy. They propose to allow Tier 2 sun grower producers to use up to 30,000 square feet of canopy. Current rule states that Tier 3 producers can use up to 30,000 square feet of canopy, and current rule doesn't distinguish between sun growers or indoor growers. The petitioners argue that several reasons support their proposal. First, that the LCB previously expanded Tier 1 producers from 2,000 to 4,000 square feet. Second, that they were previously approved for their current floor plan and have not had any previous canopy issues identified. 3, that environmental concerns and inherent differences between indoor and sun growers support more canopy for outdoor growers. 4th, that the interpretive statement from 2023 created what they call retroactive noncompliance. And 5th, that the recent denial of the request for a declaratory order endorsed further rulemaking. While I will go into more detail on this tomorrow, and I went into more detail in my written response, I'll just briefly address each of these points. First, regarding the Tier 1 expansion from several years ago, as stated, that allowed Tier 1 producers to go from 2,000 to 4,000 square feet. So each producer was allowed to expand by a total of 2,000 square feet. This proposal would expand every tier 2 producer from 10,000 to 30,000 square feet, which is an expansion of 20,000 square feet. So that's a 10-fold increase. In addition to the fact that there are many more tier 2 producers than there are tier 1 producers, and this would result in substantially more canopy space allowable in Washington. And as stated, numerous reports from the Whitney Economic Report to the JLARC report indicate that Washington has more than enough canopy space currently to meet the retail demand for cannabis. On the second issue about their previously approved floor plan approvals aren't actually based on the canopy. They're based on other factors such as security, such as other just other sort of requirements. So a floor plan approval means that it meets other requirements. It doesn't necessarily mean that you are using the amount of canopy allowed for your tier. And additionally, previous approval doesn't grandfather you in for future compliance issues. Third, as stated, current rules don't distinguish between indoor and outdoor growers. And so while outdoor growers may or may not be better for the environment, that would only sort of be felt if there was, in addition to an incentive to use outdoor grow, there was a disadvantage to using indoor grow. And as stated earlier, increasing canopy space isn't necessarily in and of itself an economic advantage. So there would have to be some other sort of, there'd have to be something else that would happen in order to sort of realize the environmental impact. Regarding the interpretive statement's over 3 years old. So this isn't something new. And additionally, as stated at the time, the interpretive statement reflected the foundation of existing enforcement and education policy and didn't result in a change in policy. But even if it was a change in policy, it was a change in policy that happened 3 years ago. So this isn't something that like just happened. Lastly, on the denial of the declaratory order, I'll go into more detail on this tomorrow, but the declaratory order denial didn't endorse further rulemaking on canopy. What it said was that the declaratory order request was being denied because if the party to the declaratory order wanted the change in policy that they were seeking, the best way to accomplish that change would be formal rulemaking. But that's not the same thing as saying that there should be. It's just saying that if that was something that the LCB wanted to accomplish, the best way to do that would be rulemaking. And lastly, as I mentioned, the petitioners actually are currently able to obtain a Tier 3 license from the open market. They can transition their Tier 2 license to a Tier 3 through existing licensing processes. If they feel the need to use 30,000 square feet, there's no need to adjust rulemaking to allow them to do that. Thank you. I know that's a lot, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Daniel. Seeing no questions, we will take that up tomorrow. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much.
All right, moving to our last agenda item is board member and executive assistant reports. So anything from board members this morning? All right, thank you. Gretchen and Deb, anything from you this morning?
Nothing today, Chair. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you very much, everyone. That concludes our board caucus meeting. I'll see you all tomorrow. Bye.